take an exhale. Sometimes we need it. I had this urge to share, which honestly is the entire intent of this channel. And it's been kind of fun actually to kind of ties into the topic for today that I have for us. But I'm also recognizing this entire channel, unlike the way I've been operating for probably 85% of my life, which is very structured, and I know the topic, I know what I'm going to say, it's all detailed out. There's this allowing, this emergence, this holding space for what could be. And just like I'm doing right now, I have an idea, perhaps an urge, a desire hits, and I trust it and I lean in and I just see what emerges alongside of you. So thanks for being on this ride with me. But really what's so interesting is I was in this group call recently, and the question was posed at the opening of the call: what is your focus? Where are you focusing your attention right now? And I think it was meant more generally, not necessarily for the purpose of the call, but where are you focusing your attention right now? And I was kind of struck and taken aback because the previous version of me has hundreds of focuses, has a very clear response to that very simple question. And I was struck because I couldn't answer. And it seems so insignificant and so small, but it was such a momentous moment, because in that same moment that I couldn't answer the question, not because I don't have focuses, because I do, but it was more of a, wow, for the first time, maybe not the first time, but what feels like a much stronger moment for me, where there's not this clear sense of direction. And it kind of feels like a gray area to be sitting in. It's almost like a transitional period of time, of space. And I'm sharing this intentionally for those of you who are similar to me, who are behavior-wise, not that this is your identity, because identities are fluid and they're all illusionary anyways, but that there's parts of you, that left logical brain of yours that is overactive and that loves to have a plan and that is always very on plan and strategizing and organized and structure. And you guys know what I'm talking about, right? So to sit in this gray, this kind of pathless path, this space of not knowing, this space of allowing an emergence, going back to what I was saying earlier, it really struck me. Because as the question was posed, as I felt, it was almost like two things were happening as the question emerged. There was a part of me, the left logical brain, that started to list out, okay, well, I'm focusing on my work and my parenting, right? It's listing out, and then you know how we do, trying to judge the answers and which one feels really good to share to the group and what's going to make me look good. But what was almost stronger for the first time was this unknown. And again, it was so micro of a moment, but this is the invitation, you guys, if you're listening, is be aware of those micro moments, because when we can really sit and expand those, that's what makes life worth living. That's the new, that's the unknown, that's the untapped potential. In that moment, as I watched my mind do the thing it normally does, I was overcome with this kind of wave of uncertainty of, oh shit, I don't know how to I don't want to answer it that way because it doesn't feel authentic. It doesn't actually feel real to the question of what am I actually focusing my attention on right now? Because for the past couple weeks, it's really felt like this whole part of me has taken my foot off the gas. And I don't know if this resonates, if you guys have had phases of your life. I've noticed for me, there's sometimes it's like a phase. There's these moments of time where this kind of drive and this passion and this fire to go do and create. And it's I love being in that state, but when I'm not in that state, it's a little scary and it's a little uncertain. And it's at the same time, it was kind of this overwhelming trust, because as soon as the left brain was doing its thing, trying to organize the thoughts, and the other kind of overwhelming space of, I actually don't have an answer for this question. And what does that mean about me and my identity and who I am? it was almost kind of like I was watching my left brain, this old identity part, trying to solve for this other side of me that started to take over. This feels very meta. I don't know that I'm explaining this so perfectly, but it was such a profound experience because I felt myself go into judgment. I felt myself go into critiquing, but it was like at the same time, this more powerful experience in my like womb, stomach area was like so at peace and so calm. And it was like, it is perfectly okay to not know. It is perfectly safe. That was the better word. Safe to be in the uncertainty, safe to be in this space of emergence. And as I was almost trying to even like pull up my calendar and do like, what have I been doing? Have I just been like floating through life these last couple of weeks? Why can't I answer this simple question? I recognized how relieving it was to no longer, at least for this phase, and not to say it's not going to rear its head, but the relief of, and I heard this said actually in a book by Adyashanti. Actually, I should give you guys I'll link it in the notes below, but I want to give it to you. The End of Your World by Adyashanti. I'm kind of listening to that right now. But he talks about this concept of the relief one will feel when you release an identity. Because if you think about it, how much energy and effort we put into maintaining an identity, whether it's in the book, he talks about the identity of being an athlete, of being a biker, of being someone who, does like this elite sport, and how when he got super sick, he couldn't do that anymore, and just what it meant to like, although there was like this shame and sadness and grief of losing it, at the same time, there was this overwhelming sense of relief. And that resonated so deeply, again, in this very micro moment that I'm just reflecting right now of what it felt like to not, and kind of this weird transitory phase I'm in right now, what it feels like to not have to cling on to being the seeker, to being the spiritual person, to being the one who is trying so hard to have an answer, who is trying so hard to find truth. And instead, it's almost like maybe I have just been kind of coasting through life, but there is such a sense of ease and relief, to be honest, it's almost like I stopped being so hyper focused on one thing all the freaking time. And I realize it's so interesting even saying that, because I know that's like part of what we have to do. That's part of like the journey of freedom, is having a focus and continuing that. But I think for the way that I'm wired, having been wired so hard to be in the masculine, to have a plan and to be focused all the time, it's almost like a scary place to really tune into the feminine, which is more of that space holder, the allowing of uncertainty and emergence and creativity and some chaos and some just a lot of unknown. So I just wanted to share, because if you're someone who is in the masculine a lot and you're finding yourself in a phase in this era of time, and it could be a day, it could be weeks, it could be months. For me right now, it's been weeks of just this, I don't know what's happening. And for the first time, I'm not trying to overanalyze it. If anything, this is the first time I'm actually putting words to just the sensation that's been growing inside of me, of just kind of going moment to moment and enjoying the flow of what's emerging. And yes, I'm still planning shit out months in advance, but there's way less of this, this attachment to a drive to an outcome, if this makes any sense. So I think the urge to share this is coming from that space of maybe selfishly wanting to put words to what I'm experiencing right now, but at the same time, also maybe an invitation to anyone else who might be experiencing this gray transitory phase where you're so used to things happening a certain way. And for the first time, there's this sense of ease, or it doesn't have to be that way anymore. Doesn't mean that life, and maybe it is, sometimes people's lives, are chaotic and, the rug gets pulled out under you. But I've always kind of convinced myself, I don't want to be someone who needs to learn things the hard way. I think it's funny, growing up, my brother I have a brother, he's 4 years younger, and I just laugh because he was the one who had to learn things the hard way. Like the mom tells you the stove is hot. He had to put his hand on to prove to like know that the stove was hot. And I'm like, okay, I watched you burn yourself. I don't need to do that. So I've always had maybe the gift or the awareness of learning through others' experiences and taking that to heart so that I don't have to go make all those mistakes myself. Anyways, I digress. Ease. So it's an interesting, it's hard to put to words, but just noticing and being more aware of, I think it's maybe part of that transition from masculine to feminine, from witnessing the thought patterns that are in my mind to stepping a little bit back and going, okay. And it's not even like an intentional thing. I think this is what this is like tripping me up, because I have worked so hard at creating the intentional thought patterns of the feminine that for the first time, this is like, no, this is actually something else is kind of taking over. And it's easy, and it's me, but it's not like the typical thought pattern of the Stephanie identity I think I've created for myself through these years. So thanks for listening to this ramble of thoughts. I am curious though, if you have found yourself ever in a phase of life where you were navigating this kind of gray area with ease, though, unlike maybe other uncertain times where, there's this kind of default mode of survival that wants to step in. This is very much like it's like 2 feet out. Like I'm tiptoeing through day. I'm still immersed in what I'm doing, but I'm very much, it's kind of like a deep stepping back and allowing just, really going with the flow in a lot of different ways. So be well. I hope that if you are in a phase like this, I would love for you to comment below, or if you've experienced anything, what your own experience was, what emerges for you. And I do look forward to diving deeper into what it means to live in the feminine as someone who's recovering from, and this obviously I hope not male or female gender wise, but the feminine energy, like stepping more into that, again, with such a letting go, non-attachment phase. So that's where I'm at. I look forward to sharing more as things emerge. Be well, friends.